My name's Peter Frykman, and I'm the founder and board director of Driptech. I was always interested in how to combine entrepreneurship and social impact, and had done some design for disability projects. I had gotten into medical device design as kind of an interest area, thinking that could be kind of an area where I could have an impact. But I saw that there was an opportunity to have maybe a faster impact on a larger group of people doing more of a appropriate technology design or bottom of the pyramid design. At the time, I was a PhD student in mechanical engineering at Stanford, and I got the chance to take a course called Entrepreneurial Design for Extreme Affordability, or for short, it's just called Extreme. So they take business students and engineers and they put them into teams to develop products for bottom of the pyramid customers. So I got a chance to interview farmers in Africa and Ethiopia. We saw that they had tremendous water scarcity and that they needed drip irrigation to save water, but also it had to be affordable and appropriate for the context of a small plot farmer. So we came back to Stanford, developed a new technology to make drip irrigation more affordable, and then we saw that was an opportunity beyond the class, and so I left my PhD and I started Driptech. I was at Stanford, and in graduate school, it's a very entrepreneurial environment. There was a lot of support for people who had ideas about starting a company, and literally everybody I knew was talking about, I'm thinking about starting a company. I have these different things, these different projects I'm working on, and so it was a very supportive environment. At some point I realized that in order to have the impact that I wanted to, in order to take the technology to as many people as possible, it needed to be an organization that could raise capital and build a team and develop the technology further and work in partnership with other organizations. It had to be some sort of organization. That realization was kind of a key turning point. In the course, we had a team of 3 people. One was a product designer, one was a business student, and then there was myself, a mechanical engineer, and we pretty much focused on our strengths. I had traveled to the country and had focused on the technology development and built the first prototype of our manufacturing technology. And the business student had done kind of like the report, and the product designer had helped with kind of the presentation and the graphics and some of that element. I spoke with them about starting a company together, and they each had other things they wanted to do outside of the class afterwards. Were very supportive of seeing me take it forward, but I was kind of on my own. I spent a good bit of time exploring, whether there was a possibility of a co-founder. I ended up spending another year at Stanford, part-time, taking some classes in the business school and working with groups of business students to help refine the business plan and trying to actually get, one or more of them to join early on. I couldn't get a co-founder, and at some point I just said, I can't wait around for this. If nobody else is going to do it, I got to do it. I was the only full-time employee for the first 2 years. Early on, just based on my enthusiasm and the goodwill of some of the people that I came across, I was able to get some really good advisors who had been, experienced entrepreneurs who had management experience, and I relied on them a lot. Some of them invested in the company, others were just sounding boards that I could talk to. I think that one of the first things that an entrepreneur needs to do is get a couple really good advisors that they trust and that care about them. They don't have to be really famous people. What's more important is just that they care about you and that they have time for you. I was the only full-time employee, so I was doing everything. The most important goals or sort of milestones that we had early on was, we had developed a prototype technology, but really we needed to show that the drip irrigation, the product that was produced, was appropriate, acceptable, and that worked in the field. And once we had shown for about 15 people that the product worked and it had an impact and that there was demand, then the next question was, can we actually sell it And about a year after I started, we got our first sale to a local government in China, and that was sort of, each of these steps we were able to raise a little bit more money. We were able to prove kind of the next big question. First, does the product work? Then, will people buy it? Then, can we sort of scale up in different stages, different parts of the business? It was interesting to do new things, but, I was always wondering whether or not I was the best person to do something. If you're learning as you go, obviously it's not the most efficient, but if you're the only person who can do something, then you have to do it. Ultimately everything has to get done, and you kind of look around and you realize that you're the only person to get it done. So it's important to find people who complement you, both in temperament as well as in experience and skills, and so that you can share the workload. An innovator is really all about creating value, so they can see a problem and they know how to solve it, and that creates value for certain people. To make that transition to entrepreneur, you need to understand how to capture some of that value. I think the first skill that I built myself outside of engineering was communication, marketing. Very soon I had to attract resources. I had to get investors and advisors involved, and I had to get other team members involved. I didn't really have that much to offer except an exciting idea and my own kind of energy level and commitment. And so the first thing I learned was kind of how to get other people excited about what we were doing and hopefully get them to help me. There are elements of finance, accounting, business planning, day-to-day operations, and even technical development that I really felt like other people could do better than me. Certain elements of kind of the recruiting, fundraising, because I had founded the company, I had an advantage in being able to sort of recruit and fundraise because I knew the product, I knew the problem and the customers better than anyone. I looked for people who were detail-oriented and who could complement my vision with, focus, and I ended up early on getting a lot of really good people involved. Because I was an engineer, I looked to basically, the people who were much better than me, and everybody I knew that was smarter than me in school. I tried to get them to come and help me with one thing or another, and I think that was the easiest because for me, I knew who was good and why they were good and what they were good at. Because they were the areas that I was kind of familiar with. In some ways, more important than that was getting the first people involved to help with business development, the sales side, not just selling our product, but structuring partnerships. What are the terms of a deal? What should our pricing be? I made a ton of mistakes. I think that the biggest mistakes, also maybe some of the best decisions I made, have to do with people that I got involved with the organization. It's really, really difficult to find the right people and also kind of avoid problems on the team. Even if things look like they're going to work out, sometimes they don't. I've learned that I can't really teach somebody to be hardworking or creative or trustworthy. And so now when I look to bring people onto the team, I make sure that they're hardworking and they're trustworthy and they're creative, because those are important elements to what we're trying to do and to our team culture. So, early on, especially if you're an inexperienced or young entrepreneur, people will say that you need to have older people on your team, people with more experience, gray hair, kind of adult supervision, all these kind of things that may or may not be true. I remember when we came to India and we were building out our team, we got a lot of pressure to hire people who had agricultural experience in India, especially in irrigation. And the people that we ended up bringing on board, we compromised in terms of talent and intelligence and flexibility in order to get people who had specific experience that we were looking for, and that was a bad decision. Almost every time we've gone we've compromised on intelligence and talent in order to get a specific experience, it's been a bad decision. So, recently some of the better people we've got on the board actually, from an experience perspective, you'd think aren't qualified for the position, but they have the just raw intelligence and energy, and they've ended up surprising everybody. One of our board members put it best. He said, Peter, you are the best person in the world to get this company from an idea to $1 million in sales, but to take it from $1 million in sales and scale it up, 10, 20, 100 times larger, there are people who've done that before and who can bring that experience and that expertise. When I handed off day-to-day responsibility at the beginning of this year, so about 6 months ago, I had been running the company for about almost 7 years as the CEO. We did a rigorous search, external candidates, internal candidates. We ended up going with our chief operating officer, and she had been at the company for about 5 years and had really taken over a lot of responsibility. We have about 35 people in the company, a little bit over $1 million in sales last year. About half of the company is in kind of product development, operations, manufacturing, and about half of the company is in sort of sales, marketing, distribution. As a founder, CEO, and really kind of having run the company and built it, and that was it took a while to fully kind of appreciate that the impact that I had set out to have could best be realized with stepping back. So it wasn't easy. I'm still very active on the board, and I'm especially supportive of our technology. I'm still making sure that the machines are running and helping with some of the product and technology roadmap.
Great.
They still let me come and say hi every once in a while, but they don't need me.